What's up, you guys? Let's get you interview ready with this very practical Apex question. Now, I haven't solved this type of problem hundreds of times in my career, but I have at least done a similar type of problem a dozen or two times in various Apex triggers, Apex batch jobs. So what we'll do is we'll walk through my thought process for solving this problem, and I'll show you myself actually coding a solution for this problem in the video. What I would suggest is for you to pause the video, go check out the link to this problem and try to solve it on your own first. Give it your best try. Whether you solve it or not, come back and unpause the video to see how I would solve it and some of the considerations and just the overall thought process I have along the way, so that it can help you see other perspectives and ultimately see how I kind of tackle some of these problems. So go ahead, pause the video and come back. What I'll do now is I'll go ahead and I'll read the question out loud and I'll kind of share some of the immediate thoughts I have while doing so. Okay, so the question says, you are provided with a list called opportunity list, where each item is an opportunity record containing 3 fields: ID, account ID, and amount. Your task is to determine which account ID has the highest cumulative amount across all associated opportunity records and return this particular account ID. There will always be exactly one account ID to return. So let's reframe this a little bit, right? Let's focus on our goal. The prompt says which account ID has the highest cumulative amount. So there's some hints in there right away, right? I know I need to group these opportunities by account ID. Once I have them grouped, I need to add up or take a sum of all the amounts per group. Once I do that, I need to go and find the one with the highest total and return that account ID. So since that's my overall game plan, let me just write that out so I don't forget it as I'm looking through this example that I'll tackle here in a second, right? So I want to group these ops by account ID. Step 2, I want to add up the amounts for each group. Step 3, I want to find the one with the highest total. Ignore my misspelling there. And we're going to return that account ID, right? This will be kind of the basis for our algorithm. So they gave us a few examples, and by they I mean me, but whatever, and go through it step by step. So there are 3 records in this example. We can tally these up kind of manually, right? And the way we would solve this just by hand, even without code, is look through each of these records one by one. And I'll just kind of copy this to the clipboard and show you what I mean to the code editor here. So I know I don't really care about what this ID value is. So just for the sake of this, let me remove it for now, just to keep my goal clear. So what I want to do is do the first step, right? Group these ops by account ID. Okay, so I know there's already 2 logical groupings here. This ID is the same and this one's unique. Once I've grouped them, I need to add up the amounts for each group. Okay, so for this group, the amount I know is 100 plus 200, right? So I have 300. And then down here, just the one account by itself, I get a total of 150, okay? Third step is to find the one with the highest total, okay? So that's as simple as just comparing this value to this value, 300 to 150. I know that this value is larger, so I can return this account ID, and that's my winner. And that's what we have here. Go through that second example real quick too, just to make sure it's really clear to us how we need to approach this problem. Okay, same thing. I don't really care about the opportunity IDs, but I'll keep it here for now. So I'm gonna look at this first account ID and I know to separate that. I look at the second one, I see it's not the same as the one I've seen before, so I separate that. Go on to this third one, see yet again, another unique account ID. I'll keep that separate as well. And this one's pretty straightforward. I know that I won't type it out for all of these, but okay, that account ID maps to 550. This account ID maps to 620, blah, blah, blah. So I know the value I need to return is the value associated with this highest number, which is this account ID. Cool. So what I'll do next is I'll kind of break it down into pseudocode. But what's really important here is how we've approached the problem so far, right? We didn't jump straight into the code. We read the prompt. We identified how we would kind of manually solve this problem, make sure we understand the problem first by identifying the grouping key, the values to sum, and walk through some examples with either you can do that with pen and paper, or you can do what I did and just use the built-in code editor. And what this does is hopefully it just makes the actual coding part a little bit easier because you understand the structure and roughly what the results should look like, right? And then you can focus on the code. So again, instead of jumping straight into the code, I'm going to break this down into some pseudocode first. We put together a good game plan before we really start writing code. I'll make this a little more specific than what I had here. So step 1 of my pseudocode is really going to be to create that same type of mapping logic. So every time we need to group something, like in this example, grouping amounts by account ID, you should really start thinking about maps. That's the data structure that's most likely going to be used. So the idea here is, okay, let me create a map to store the total amounts per account ID, right? And maybe this will end up looking something like account totals or account sum. And to start, it'll be an empty map that I'll just declare, right? So step 2, what I'll need to do is I'll probably need to loop through each opportunity in the list, just like I did in the manual example I did. So really roughly, that'll just look like something like for every opportunity in that opportunity list that I'm given, I want to step through, I want to understand what that account ID is in the opportunity, and I want to understand what the amount value is in that opportunity. Let's kind of pull those out for now. Once I pulled those values out, this is where I'll need to keep track of them somehow and everything that comes along with it. So I'll need to check to see if this map that I created up here, the account totals, already contains this account ID or amount. Now, of course, the very first time I'm iterating through this loop, it's not going to be in there, right? So I'll do something like I'll check, right? I'll check to see if the account ID exists inside the account totals. If it does, then I can just take account totals, the account totals total amount, let's say, and add the amount. And if this is the first time and I've never seen this before, what we'll do is we'll just set it for the first time. So we will set account total to the amount itself instead of adding it. So at this point, we've kind of grouped these values together, and it's time for step 3, which is all about finding the account ID with the highest total. So to do this, we probably want to start looping through every account ID in that map of account IDs that we have. And for each one, we want to check, is the value inside that map, is it greater than some like running total that we have, or current max, I should say? Is it greater than some like max value? To keep track of our max value, we haven't declared anything like that yet. So outside of the for loop, I'll declare a new variable called max value. Let's just make that a decimal, max value. I'm going to set that to null. So we'll check to see if, so let me actually skip this. Instead of doing that first, we'll check. We'll see if max value is null. That means we've never set a max value before. So whatever amount we're currently looking at, that can be the max value. We'll just set that right now. Otherwise, we can check, we can have an else if. We can check to see if the max value is less than the current value that we're looping through in this account map. If it is, that means we have a new max value. And what we'll do is we'll just keep iterating through this map until we finally get the value that we need, which is going to be our maximum value. But the question's not asking for us to return the maximum amount. It's asking to return the account ID associated with the maximum amount. So it looks like in addition to keeping track of the max value, we should probably also keep track of the account ID with the max value or something, right? Maybe there's better names for that variable, but that's what we have for now. Fix that later. Go ahead and set that to whatever account ID we're currently looking at, just to keep that guy up to date as we're iterating through. And that means I can just come here after I'm done with this for loop, the very last step, turn the account with the maximum. That's roughly our game plan, right? So let's write some actual code now and see if this is actually going to work. And we'll debug along the way. If this hasn't made sense, don't worry yet. It'll have a chance to make a little more sense once we start debugging some of these values. Okay, so let me start with step 1. Let's actually go ahead and create a map. What I want to map is the amounts by the account IDs, or the account IDs to the amounts, right? So I would need a map of ID to decimal. Let's call it account ID to amounts, or we could call it amounts by account ID. We're going to set that to a new map. Done with step 1. Let's go. Now we need to loop through each opportunity in the list. So for every opportunity in that opportunity list, we will go ahead and extract that data that we have here. I'm just going to move this over, and account ID is just an ID. Amount, we'll store that in another local decimal here. Lock in, you guys are doing great. So the next part of this for loop is to actually populate that map, right? So what I'll do is I'll need to check to see if that account ID exists in the account total. So let's see, what should we do here? That means we need to look at this map and we need to get this account ID and store that in, what would we get back? We would get the total amount, right? So decimal total amount, or total sum, let's call it, whatever you want. I'll just keep it at total amount. Now there's a chance that we're looping through this for loop for the first time if we've never set this map before, right? That's literally what's going to happen the first time this for loop runs. So when this runs, this won't throw a null pointer exception or anything, but it will return back null. So total amounts will be null. But that's actually a good thing because we can use that in this if statement. Or I guess this one, this else statement. So I'll flip the if else conditions a little bit. I'll say if the total amount, if it is indeed null, that means I need to set this map. It's never been set before. So that makes it a little more clear, right? So I'll just do put. I'll grab this account ID, and I don't want to set the total amount, but I do want to set the amount. Cool. So we've initialized this map. Otherwise, if that total amount comes back not null, that means, hey, we have set this map before, so I can just add to whatever is in the map. Right? So there's a couple different ways to do this depending on how much code golf you want to play. I will just kind of write it a little more succinctly for now, and but there's a couple different ways to do this. It's not a big deal, whichever way you choose. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put back that same account ID that I had, and in here you can go and grab the total amount value that you know is not null, and you can just add that to the current iteration's version of amount. And of course, you didn't have to declare these variables. I could have just as easily done like op.amount, for example. You could have definitely done that too, not needed those variables. Totally up to you on what works best for you and what you deem is most readable and what your team deems as most readable. Okay, so let's take a break here. Let's actually debug this and see what things are looking like. So I'm gonna debug this amounts by account ID and see if we kind of did this correctly. And to help, let me add another debug here just to look at each opportunity one by one. I'll comment this out for now just so it's a little more clear. So hopefully every time when this method is called, we'll get a list of opportunities. We'll debug that one by one just to get a look and feel of the data, make sure things look good. And then I'll come back and uncomment that out. So let's run this. Hopefully it execute. Variable does not exist. Let me comment that out. Just return null for now. Okay, cool. Sweet. We got some log entries. All right, sweet. So it looks like it's passing in the same data that we saw here. Cool, cool, cool. All right, so what I'm expecting to see when I uncomment out this debug is two values in the map. One value is going to show this account ID and it's going to show 300. And the second value is going to show this account ID and it's going to show 150. So let me comment that out and run this again. Nice. AAB 150, AA4 300. Okay, cool. So it looks like we built our map correctly. So now I can feel a little more confident moving on to step 3, right? We just did this part. So this is the part that really matters, right? It's now we have our data, we have it grouped. We can actually solve our problem. The goal of step 3 was to find the account ID with the highest total amount. So just think through that for a second. What would we need to do? We would need to look at all those entries on the map, right? And just figure out, easy enough, which one has the highest amount field associated to it. Easy. We did this, we can do that, not a big deal. So we said we would create a decimal called max value. We said we would define a new account ID just to help us keep track of the account that we want to return back. Okay, fine. We want to loop through all those accounts, right? Okay, so for every ID, let's just call that ACC ID in this maps key set. We want to check to see, okay, first off, this lovely max value that we created, and this should not be, let me just change this to max value like that. If max value is null, lucky you, you get to be the new max value, whoever you are. So I get to go grab this, get that value that's in there by this account ID. And just in case that's not clear to you guys, let me just debug that max value so you can see what's in it. Take a look. Cool. So this debug is for this line, right? It printed out null, which makes sense. Looking at this, I go and grab whatever amount I have associated to that account ID. Looks like it grabbed 300. I can confirm that's the correct value if I also just print out the account ID. AA4 300. Cool. That matches what I'm seeing here, right? So it looks like everything so far is working good. Let me get rid of these debugs. I can write the last part of this if else block. And what I care about here was whether or not the max value I'm keeping track of is less than or greater than whatever I'm currently iterating through. So if the max value is less than whatever is in here, then I need to replace the max value with that, right? Now, again, there's a million ways to do the same thing. I could also just like grab this, for example, made a if condition like that. That would also totally work just fine. So if either of those are true, I will have my new max value. And let's not forget that I need to return the account ID. So we will set that value to whatever account ID just won this max value race. And I'm good to go on with step 4 to return the account ID with the max value. Let's see if this passes our tests. Scenario 1, Scenario 2, Scenario 3, Scenario 4. Let's go. All right, you guys, again, there's probably a couple other ways to solve this problem. One thing that I would probably do on the job that I didn't do here is I would break this down into methods. In general, I might like have a common utility method that allows me to do this type of grouping by some value in a separate method. That way I can keep this really focused on what's unique to the logic, which is, setting this max value. But yeah, that's one way to solve this problem. Good luck, have fun with the rest, and check out the other videos for some of watching me solve some of these other problems. All right, good luck, you guys.